Hi, my name is Kayla Lucas, and I have a Bachelor's of Science in Mathematics, and I'm an intermediate data analyst with storytelling analytical skills, utilizing research, data collection, Excel, SQL, and Tableau. I also have leadership skills from when I was in college. I was the president of Mathematics and Computer Science Club. I was a career service ambassador and a resident advisor. Since I'm familiar with the duties of a data analyst, I'm expanding my skills to learn Python with the help of Savvy Coders Bootcamp. Looking for an entry-level data analytics job using Python. This gives me the opportunity to use learned knowledge and skills to make a good storyline from data. After enjoying a semester of freedom, I decided to get back in the workforce and decided to work with a local animal shelter on any business problem they're facing. A friend told me about the Savvy Coders Data Analytics Plus Python Bootcamp, so I attended the preview night, decided the program was the best way for me to grow my skills and land a job. So for my capstone, I was given the task to focus on the length stay of adult dogs in the shelter and foster care. My capstone would display the average length of adult dogs in the foster care and shelter. And I also was wondering kind of like, would a foster dog be more likely to get adopted? Thank you. And so for my presentation, I have three parts. The first part is kind of like I go through interview questions, behavioral and technical. At the end of the presentation, I'll put like my business card and you can scan it, go to my resume and check out my GitHub to access those videos. And then part two, I'll go into like being an agile, and then I'll go straight into my presentation. Thank you. All right, so this is the part of the presentation where I will showcase the agile method. So I'll play the role of being the product owner, spectrum master, and a data analyst. So my role as a product owner, I am in control of creating the sprints and the backlogs so that my team has things to do. So here I created the sprint KL1. I am 257, and then I have backlogs as well, like present data, data cleaning, data analyzing, and then to pick a topic. So in order for me to put my backlogs into the sprint, they will pop up down here, and then I will pull them up into the sprint. And so once I do all of this, I would like host a call with Spectrum Master, update them on everything, and then they would pass it on to the team. So now I'm the Spectrum Master, and when I go to board, all of those backlogs that were created will show up here in under to do, and then the team can someone on the team can either read the description in the backlog, take ownership of over it, or I can assign it to them. So now I am a data analyst, and I see that there is a data cleaning. So I simply will read it to see if I want to take ownership of it. In the description, it's telling me to remove the nulls, remove or skip unwanted rows, and then replace the nulls with NA. So I'm like, okay, I can do that. So I would simply take it out of to do and bring it over to in progress. And then I click on it again, and then I can simply go into it. So when I was doing this, I simply, let me zoom in a little bit. So I simply just imported the Excel file using pd.read underscore Excel. This will bring up my database into Python. And so I didn't like how my data looked. It didn't look clear enough for me. So what I did was I left a comment saying that I felt like my data wasn't clear. So if anyone, so they can know that I had a blocker. And so I ended up figuring out what it was, and it was that I used print DF and not just DF on its own. And so once I did that, now you see like my data looks more clean. Like you see the rows and the columns way better, and everything it just looks clean. And so once I realized that, and I looked at my data again, I saw that there were nodes within it, and so I wanted to remove those nodes. And then there was also certain columns that had nodes that I wanted to stay the same or just replace them. So to replace them, I used the following code here. I used the DL4.replace, and I replaced all of the dashes with NA. And then when I was saying like a certain column had already had nodes, and I didn't want those nodes, so I said put foster care so that my data would be more understandable for me once I'm presenting or making my presentation in Tableau. And so after I do all of those things, like I upload my Excel file, I replace the nulls, the things that I was asked to do, I would just simply recreate a new a new Excel file using .2_Excel. And that would just make a completely new Excel file with the up-to-date data. And that's what I will use to showcase my presentation. So now that I've done all that I was asked, I remove the nulls and skip the unwanted rows. And then I also replace the nulls with NA. Now I can remove this from in progress to done. And that's how the agile method is. I simply just, as a data analyst, I would take ownership over a card and a backlog, put it in progress, and then do it up until it's done. And then once I'm done, if there's another task for me to do in a backlog, then I will take ownership of that and do the same thing up until I'm done. Hi, so my topic was the length stay of adult dogs in a shelter versus foster care. And I reached out to Gateway Pet Guardians to ask for the topic. And the question that I came up with was, what is the average length of stay for the adult dogs in the shelter versus the foster care? And is there a significant difference in the two groups? So looking at the data, I kind of did it from like the month to year. So like the average for adult dogs in foster care when it came to January of 2023 was the dogs that were in custody, which means that the dog could have been at the shelter or they could be in foster care, was 3,088. And then those dogs that were on site were about 796. Now, this doesn't mean that they were like, oh, 796. This is about, in January, that's about how many dogs came through the shelter. And so that is kind of like how I got the average, but I just want to kind of go more into details. Like, so the shelter opened up where I reached out to them, which is East St. Louis, in 2019. So in 2019, when they first opened up, like you can tell, like they saying that in custody they had about 1,149 dogs, and then they had 744 that came through for the whole month of January. And let's say as the years go by, we could go to 2020. In January, they had about 399 dogs that were in custody, which means that they probably were going to foster care, or they might be been on site. But we know for sure that 9 dogs were like still on site when the other dogs possibly were like being fostered. And so the other thing was there a significant difference. So looking here, foster care is in pink, and then adopted is in blue. So when it comes to foster care dogs, you can see like the numbers there's not that many pink dots, which means that like that there are more dogs getting adopted than from the shelter than the ones that are getting adopted. Because if you look here, I also have other things as like when if the dog is on an adoption floor, if the dog is being visited in the daycare. So like what this means when they're on an adopted floor means that if someone is looking for a pet bull, they could come and like play with the pet bull and see if they like it. So someone is more likely to adopt the dog if they get to come play with the dog, opposed to a dog being in a foster care and someone's like, walking a dog and someone like, oh, I like your dog. And they may say, oh yeah, I'm actually fostering the dog. If you want it, you could go on this website and this is how you can adopt a dog. So there are other ways that you can look at the database. And so, yeah, I just wanted to point that out. Just like, I believe that there is a significant difference because like the dogs that were getting adopted were the ones that were located at the shelter, and the ones that are still they're still within the system at the shelter are the ones that's been fostered. Like say for instance, here you see how it says that the outcome date is NA. That means that there's no information to input because the dog is still in the foster, still being fostered. And so that means that like it's a 10 out of 10 chance that it's more likely for the dog to get adopted from the shelter than being in foster care. So then I came up with another question, which was, I was wondering if adult dogs in the foster care are more likely to get adopted than those in the shelter, leading to a shorter length of stay overall. So that kind of goes back to what I was saying, that yeah, it might be you may think that they will get adopted because being a foster dog, like maybe the owner's starting to love you and like you, but like someone might just want to foster a dog for a short period of time and you never know if something come up. So like they may return the dog back to the shelter. And now that puts another dog back within the dogs in custody or dogs on site. And so I believe that I personally believe that the shelter is where they would get more dogs adopted. They just probably have to like host a few events to get more people to come out and support or come pet the dogs, take pictures with the dogs, and kind of let people get the feel of liking the dogs and possibly adopting them. So yeah, this was when I was going into my conclusion. I just was looking at the databases of the foster dogs. Like, no, most of the foster dogs are still in the system. They're still being fostered, opposed to those dogs that were at the shelter and they've been adopted. And then sometimes it'll be like they may have been in the shelter for like 3 months. Sometimes it may be, a few. It might be like 2 months. Like one dog was in the shelter for only like 2 days and got adopted. So it's like there are people that's looking out for adult dogs when it comes to, buying a dog from the shelter. So I have a third question. So the other thing was like, oh, there's so many dogs that are that's being on site or in custody, and there are or adult dogs because maybe people are buying puppies. People want puppies. They may not be drawn to wanting a big dog. And so the thing was like maybe it's the breed of the dog, right? So I kind of just put together the breeds of the dogs and like to see like what dogs had like the most stay. And as you can see, it's the pit bull. So it's like we know that in general people think that pit bulls are kind of like vicious and they're not like friendly dogs. So like it's like maybe out of those 183,000 day altogether those dogs is in custody, like maybe you have to go more into detail. Like some of the dogs are stray, so that means that maybe someone just let the dog loose and the dog ran away. Some of the dogs are returned back to the shelter. Some of the dogs were brought back to the shelters, but were brought to the shelter by their owners. So it's like maybe some people can't handle a pet bull, and so it's like now it's like how can the next problem for the shelter would be like how can we get people to want to adopt a pet bull? And then you have like Rottweilers, all types of dogs like hounds. It's all types of dogs that you can go into details, but it's just like look at the numbers, and it's like the biggest one is pit bull. Even the American pit bulls is right there. It's like people are not like keeping them, not even as far as like the in custody. Like, because remember, in custody means that it could be in foster care or it can be on site. And so like it's telling me that the dogs have been on site for about 2,000 days. Like that's a long time being on site, opposed to getting adopted like within the 2 weeks, like maybe like a Chihuahua or something. So that's kind of like something that I looked into as well. And then they also, just looking at these numbers, another question that could come to mind, right, is that like, what about overcapacity? Like when all of these pet bulls are not being adopted, like what happened when the shelter see another dog or someone call and say, hey, I see another dog. Can you send someone over to get him? But it's like the shelters, they don't have enough room. So it's like now you have to look into like the square foot of the room where they're having a dog shelter. Like, do they need to make a few rooms? Because it's like, once again, if no one is adopting those pet bulls, we have to find a solution so that the other dogs can have somewhere to come when it comes to being sheltered, because someone may not like jump on like fostering that new dog that's coming in. So they have to find somewhere, but if they can't, they have to probably reach out to another local pet animal shelter to figure out a way to just have their dog house for a while. But it's just like that's another question that can come up, like about it being over, like just not having enough room simply because there's too many pit bulls, there's too many adult dogs, and no one wants an adult dog. What can we do? Like, what are things that we can do to get someone to be more involved with wanting to love pet bulls or retrievers, any dog that's in the system for more than a week or even 3 months? Like, so that could be that's another question to look into. And that is the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. At the end, I have my resume, and you can check out my GitHub so that you can check out more of like the things that I did in the cohorts. And if you have any questions, you just email me. If you want to have a chat, talk to me, whatever you want to do, you just reach out to me. I'm available. I'm currently looking for a data analytics job that uses Python. And I want to also I want to thank the cohort for Safety Coders for introducing me to the things that I've been introduced with my time with them. I'm grateful and I'm thankful, and I know that this will take me a long way. So thank you.